Amazing moment. Little girl's confident claim about police dog leads to an incredible discovery. Lily stood in front of her classmates, arms crossed and chin held high, a glimmer of mischief shining in her eyes. "I know what Rex is thinking," she declared, her voice echoing in the polished halls of the police station. Her words ignited a mix of giggles and snickers among her friends, but the officers exchanged skeptical glances from their posts. They'd seen many kids burst through the doors, yet none were quite as spirited as Lily, a small dynamo in a pink jacket. In a town that hadn't seen much excitement lately, her confidence stirred something deep within the adults. As days turned into weeks, Lily returned to the station, drawn in by Rex's warm gaze, a retired police dog with stories etched into his soulful eyes. Each time she petted him, she imagined unraveling the tangled threads of his past, believing that if she could communicate with him, perhaps he held secrets of her grandfather, the officer who vanished years ago. This mission consumed her thoughts, pulling her deeper into a world she didn't fully understand. What if Rex knew what happened to him? But the thought made her stomach ache. What if Rex knew something dark? Her heart raced at the idea that she might be on the brink of a breakthrough, but doubt crept in like a thief. Cresting a tense moment at home, she had unearthed a faded badge and a dusty journal belonging to her grandfather from the attic the other day. The pages were riddled with notes about challenges to the town's leadership. Each entry tugged at her, a mixture of pride and fear surging within her small frame. Could she honor him by shining light on what lay hidden in shadows? "Maybe this isn't right," she whispered, tossing and turning in bed, her mind wrestling between loyalty to family and a burgeoning sense of justice. What would happen to her parents if she revealed the secrets? Laughter rang out in her head, the voices of classmates, whispers of wild imagination, and just a kid. Would they still tease her if they knew she was brave enough to follow her gut? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One afternoon, her determination guided her to the back of a local cafe, where she stumbled upon a hidden folder tucked behind an old menu. Heart pounding, she flipped it open, and her breath caught in her throat. Documents lay before her, hinting at a network of corruption that twisted through her quiet town like vines choking a tree. This was bigger than her. These secrets stretched beyond her imagination, tethering her to a fear that raced in her chest. As she pieced it all together, a wave of realization crashed over her. If she followed through, she risked everything. Her family's name, her own comfort, her childhood. Thoughts churned in her mind. Her stomach knotted. Could she be brave enough to step in the shoes of her grandfather? The answer whispered back, more obstinate than any 8-year-old should have to bear. Yes, you can do this. Yet doubt loomed, a heavy weight on her small shoulders. What legacy did she want to uphold? A storm brewed within her as she stared out the cafe window, the leaves swirling, mirroring her turbulent thoughts. In that tense moment, Lily faced her unspooling emotions. She held the choice that could burst her world wide open. Would she dare to challenge the very foundations of her town? What awaited her on the other side of revelation? Fear and determination entwined like opposing forces, each moment heavier than the last, and the question lingered in the air. Could she truly expose what was meant to stay hidden? The morning sun filtered through the branches of the oak trees lining the street, casting playful shadows across the pavement as Lily pedaled her bike toward the police station. Her heart raced, not from the physical exertion, but from the weight of the truth she had unearthed. Each turn of the pedals echoed her internal resolve, the deepening commitment to her quest for answers hovering just beyond her grasp. Rex awaited her arrival, oblivious to the storm brewing in his young friend's mind. As she dismounted and trotted inside, her thoughts raced back to the folder. The documents had been marked with names she recognized, town officials, community leaders, Yet the deeds they concealed were dark and twisted. Gritting her teeth, she felt that familiar combination of fear and excitement swirl in her gut. Today marked a new chapter in her investigation, and she couldn't back down now. "Lily, back again," Officer Davis called out, his warm voice breaking through her spiraling thoughts. The genial officer leaned down to her eye level, noticing the seriousness etched into her brow. "What can we do for you today?" She hesitated, the words forming yet catching in her throat. No longer was she the playful girl who had wandered in with dreams of understanding Rex's past. Now she stood on the precipice of discovery, a daunting reality shifting beneath her feet. Instead, she asked, feigning innocence, "Can Rex do anything special today?" A shared glance between Officer Davis and his partner told her they understood. They sensed her desire for more than simple playdates with Rex. Both officers exchanged nods, and soon enough, Rex was brought forward, tail wagging in joyful anticipation. Lily knelt beside the dog and began to pet him, drawing strength from his presence. She closed her eyes and focused, willing herself to connect with the wisdom she felt resided beneath Rex's fur. "You have to help me today," she whispered, her hands trembling. "I need to know what happened." Rex leaned into her, his warm breath fanning her face softly, as if urging her on. It was a moment that crystallized her purpose. Lily straightened, determination blooming within her. She couldn't avoid the secrets for much longer. Each day that passed without confronting the town's dark underbelly was a day riddled with doubt. Doubt about herself, her family, and the legacy her grandfather had left behind. That evening at home, her heart pounded as she considered the next steps. She unfolded the journal again, tracing over her grandfather's handwritten notes. Corruption, fear, protection. Each word seemed to resonate with her burgeoning courage. The weight of the past met the urgency for the future, colliding in a way that demanded action. Something clicked in her mind. She would not simply be an observer of her grandfather's legacy. She would actively take on his mantle. She needed to decipher the connections between the notes and the names she had seen in the folder. It was a risky venture, but what did she stand to lose? The fear of being a girl, just imagining things, had no power over her. She was more than that. As she began to strategize her next move, Lily felt her resolve solidify. The whispers of doubt faded, replaced by a charting of steps forward. Would she need to confront these officials herself? Challenge the very people she saw every day? The thought sent another thrill through her. Just then, her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. A text from a friend appeared on the screen, but she barely noticed. The world outside quieted as she focused inward, breathing steadily, preparing herself for the tumultuous journey ahead. Lily clasped the journal tightly to her chest. She understood now. This struggle would shape her into the person she was meant to become. With the whispers of her grandfather echoing in her mind, she knew the time had come to face her fears, a first step toward uncovering the truth. What would she discover about herself along the way, and how far was she willing to go to reveal the past? The night unfolded, heavy with promise, setting the stage for her confrontation with the unknown that loomed ahead. The days rolled on, each one layering more urgency upon Lily's resolve. She awoke early each morning, the first hint of dawn stirring her restless spirit. The thrill of her purpose snaked through her veins. No longer was she merely the curious child. She was a budding investigator, a seeker of truths too long buried. Each breakfast blended into a routine that paled in comparison to the complexities she now faced. With her grandfather's journal under her pillow, the words from those faded pages danced in her mind. Fear is only as strong as you allow it to be. Every phrase fueled her courage as she methodically planned her next moves. It struck her that to expose the rot within the town, she would need allies, perhaps even unlikely ones. Midweek found her in the bustling local library, its pages echoing whispered promises of hidden knowledge. There, she sifted through archives, piecing together decades of local history, while trying to trace the convoluted connections between names she had seen in the folder. Each discovery sent shivers down her spine. Often she paused to consider the weight her discoveries might carry. Who would stand with her against the very people she had trusted? But the gnawing sensation of urgency thrummed like a metronome in her veins, keeping time with her resolve. The library was more than just an archive. It became her sanctuary, a realm where she momentarily escaped the crushing expectations of others. One afternoon, while diving deep into old newspaper clippings, Lily's eyes widened at a headline that practically shouted back at her, "Corruption in office, allegations surround mayor's involvement." The article detailed whispers of money laundering, naming several officials she had already encountered in her investigation. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her. She was closer than ever to unraveling the truth. But how would she confront such deeply entrenched powers? Doubt seeped in unexpectedly, gnawing at her confidence. Facing down authority figures who had operated in the shadows felt like a David and Goliath situation, and she questioned whether she could truly stand firm among them. It was during these bouts of introspection that Rex continued to be a silent guide. Each time she visited the police station, his instinct seemed to mold her courage into a livelier flame. As they spent time together, she found herself practicing what she would say when the time came. "You don't just protect, you confront," she would remind herself, leaning into the reassuring warmth of the dog. One afternoon, she even humorously suggested he needed to join her on this crusade as part of his training. When Officer Davis learned of her late evenings at the library, he expressed concern. "You're sure you don't want to leave this to the adults, Lily?" The question gnawed at her. Did he see her as a child unfit to challenge the system? But in that moment, conviction ignited anew. She had to prove that her instincts were sharp, her investigation worthwhile. "Oh, I'm just getting started," she replied, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. Davis lifted an eyebrow at her unexpected bravado, as if he sensed she was harboring a storm of thoughts too big for her frame. That subtle reassurance of tension brought something important home for Lily. She wasn't alone. With each passing day, the stakes grew clearer, and it became evident that her direct confrontation with the elected officials was looming closer. The weight of her discoveries pressed down on her shoulders. Could she truly tackle the truth head-on? The fleeting insecurity mixed with burgeoning bravery created a push and pull that only fueled her desire to forge ahead. That night, under the ceiling of her room, she laid the journal open before her. Seeing the ink bleed into the fragile paper reminded her that others had faced their fears and won. "It's time to embrace what I need to do," she vowed, her voice barely above a whisper but fierce in its determination. Resolution burned bright as she prepared to reach out to an insider, someone who might provide the missing puzzle piece she needed. Just as she dialed the number, doubts crept in. Would an ally emerge from the shadows? Or would she remain only a whisper amid thunderous voices of authority? The call connected, and anticipation gripped her heart. She had crossed a threshold into uncertainty, but she knew one thing. There was no turning back now. As the line rang, another question took root. What truths awaited her, and at what cost? The answer, like an echo in the distance, could change everything. Lily's breathing quickened as she listened to the dial tone, each beep amplifying her anxiety. She could almost feel her heart thudding against her ribs, a relentless reminder of the weight of her undertaking. The call was meant to connect her to a local journalist, rumored to have insights into the very corruption she was hoping to expose. Would this be the moment that sparked a change, or just another dead end? When the voice finally answered, her throat went dry. "Hello?" The journalist sounded wary, perhaps accustomed to fielding calls from skeptics or mischief-makers. Lily swallowed hard, gathering her thoughts. "Hi, my name is Lily. I'm looking into some allegations about local officials." She surprised herself with her steadiness, her voice betraying none of the apprehension swirling inside. "I think there's something bigger going on, and I need your help to uncover it." There was a pause on the other end, followed by a skeptical chuckle. "A kid? Investigating corruption? This better not be a prank." The dismissiveness stung, but her grandfather's words echoed in her thoughts. "Fear is only as strong as you allow it to be." With renewed conviction, she pressed on. "I've done my research, and I have names, connections. If you give me just a chance to explain, I know we can get to the truth." Skepticism wrapped around the journalist's tone like a shroud, but then something shifted. "All right, I'm intrigued. Meet me at the cafe on 5th Street tomorrow at noon. but this better not be a waste of my time. Thank you. The relief was palpable, flooding her with warmth. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. She hung up, the gravity of what she had just agreed to settling in her chest. This was it, a chance to connect the dots and gain the ally she so desperately needed. The next day dawned clear and bright, each ray of sunlight seeming to conspire with her bravery. As she stepped out, Rex trotted beside her, tail wagging in a rhythm matched only by her pulsing determination. The cafe loomed ahead, bustling with life, but Lily focused solely on the potential awaiting her inside. Would this journalist take her seriously? Could this be the turning point? Once inside, she scanned the room, spotting the journalist at a corner table. He appeared skeptical, flipping through his notebook as if weighing the merits of every word she might speak. Settling into the seat across from him, a surge of confidence blew back through her. "I have the records from the library," she began, excitement bubbling in her voice as she pulled out her notes. The journalist leaned forward, his interest sparking in his eyes. "And there's something else, a connection to the mayor's office that I think you'll find compelling." As she spoke, sharing her findings and theories, she felt herself transforming further before his very eyes. With each word, she shed layers of self-doubt like old skin, steadily becoming the investigator she aspired to be. "Interesting. I'll need to see those records," he replied, jotting down her information. The conversation flowed, and for the first time she grasped the power of her initiative. It was exhilarating to see her thoughts take shape in front of someone who could amplify her voice. However, doubt still loitered at the edges of her mind, whispering troubling predictions. Would the journalist truly take her seriously when they tackled the more dangerous confrontations ahead? Dismissing those fears, she pressed on, feeling the momentum shift toward clarity and purpose. As they wrapped up their meeting, the journalist grinned. "You might just be onto something, kid. Let's collaborate. I'll get my team involved." His enthusiasm broke through her hesitation, igniting a spark of hope. Back home that night, panic gripped her once more as her thoughts spiraled toward what lay ahead. Would they really uncover the truth? Or would they awaken a beast that could swallow them whole? Lily felt a soft nudge against her leg and looked down at Rex. His presence grounded her. She knew now that she had stepped from the shadows and into the limelight. The next step would be harder, full of confrontations that might challenge her both mentally and morally. Just as she began to plan her next moves, a thunderous knock interrupted her thoughts. Fear swept through her but was quickly replaced again by resolve. Who could it be? What news awaited her on the other side of that door? Her heart raced, deciding whether to confront this uncertainty head-on or retreat into the safety of the moment. Lily's breath caught as she hesitated, hand hovering above the door handle. The knock reverberated through her chest, each thump sounding louder than the last. Who would seek her out in such urgency? With affirming resolve, she opened the door. Standing there was a man in a dark coat, his expression unreadable. "Lily?" he asked, scanning her face as if searching for signs of innocence or guilt. "Who are you?" she managed, her voice steady despite the surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The man took a step forward, invading her space. "I'm with the local investigative unit," he said, his tone layered with authority. "Can we talk? It's about the allegations you're investigating." Her mind raced. Did word of her inquiries reach the police? She didn't want to be seen as a nuisance or worse, a target. She stammered. "What do you know?" "We have reason to believe there's a significant risk in what you're trying to uncover." He lowered his voice, glancing over his shoulder as though something, or someone, was lurking nearby. "Are you sure you want to pursue this?" Dread seeped in, her resolve faltering. But within her coiled determination was a flicker of awareness. This was a defining moment. The choice was hers. She could retreat into oblivion or confront the swirling complexities of danger head-on. "I'm already in it," she said, the words beginning to flow more freely. "I want to know the truth and do something about it." The man's expression softened slightly, perhaps respecting her tenacity. "You might not understand who you're dealing with. This goes deeper than you imagine. There are people at stake, people who would do anything to protect their interests. Chills crept down her spine, not from fear but from the overwhelming realization of the gravity of her mission. She saw herself standing at the entrance of a darkened tunnel, light flickering just out of reach. "Then I need your help to navigate it," she declared. "I can't do this alone." He regarded her closely, weighing her words. "You're boldly stepping into the chaos, Lily, but feeling the urgency isn't enough. You must be prepared for the consequences." "I'm ready," she insisted. With an almost imperceptible nod, he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Then let's map out a strategy. I can provide some resources, and together we'll figure out how to approach this without losing everything." As they moved to the small kitchen table, the tension in the air shifted, invigorating her enthusiasm. Lily began outlining her discoveries, sharing every lead she had, every suspicious activity she had documented. With every detail, she reclaimed her confidence, feeling the journalist's earlier skepticism morphing into trust. Over the next hour, they drilled deeper into strategies and potential dangers, discussing avenues she hadn't considered and potential obstacles that would challenge her ethics and resilience. Each moment felt electric, rippling with the thrill of joint purpose. She felt herself rising, her vision expanding as accountability coupled with ambition. Yet, a low voice in her head continued to echo caution. The stakes were rising fast. Every decision she made could either fortify her resolve or sow chaos in her pursuit for justice. As the man outlined the resources he could provide, she couldn't help but wonder, where would her limitations be tested next? Just as they finished mapping out essential steps forward, there was another loud knock, this time more insistent and urgent. Her heart fluttered, curiosity battling with concern. What further disruption awaited them? "Stay close," the man ordered quietly, tension flickering in the depths of his narrowed gaze. She nodded, both anxious and eager, knowing full well she had officially stepped into a world riddled with peril. The door swung open before she could call out, revealing an unexpected visitor. A familiar face filled with anguish and determination stared back at her. The confusion and fear in that face mirrored her own as they crossed paths in this tumultuous journey. "Lily, we need to talk." "It's about the mayor's office," the newcomer said urgently, their tone low but charged with urgency. Caught between two conversations spiraling toward explosive revelations, Lily realized she had no choice but to decide once more, to delve deeper into the tumultuous waters surrounding the truth, or brace herself for the invincible force of the unknown. Would she remain anchored to her purpose, or would she drift, at the mercy of unseen tides? Lily's heart raced as she took in the urgent plea on her friend's face. She had not expected to see Sarah in this moment of upheaval. Sarah's brow furrowed, bracing herself for the intention behind her words. The air thickened with tension, and time seemed to crawl as Lily weighed her next move. Could they both know more than they were letting on? "Can we talk in the kitchen?" Lily said, casting a cautious glance at the man who now stood with arms crossed, his expression tense and watchful. Sarah stepped inside, her presence igniting an unspoken bond of shared purpose. As they moved to the confines of the kitchen, Lily felt the weight of her own uncertainty pressing down on her. She needed to navigate carefully. Both Sarah and the man were pivotal to her mission, and any wrong step could send them spiraling into chaos. "Lily," Sarah began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I overheard something at the mayor's office. They're trying to cover up the allegations in your investigations. There's a lot more at stake than anyone realizes." The words hung in the air, vibrating with the gravity of their implications. Lily's mind churned as she processed this information. The connections she had suspected were more substantial than she had grasped. It was a reminder of how tangled the web of deception truly was. "What do you mean? Are they bribing people?" She leaned closer, her instincts kicking in as a journalist. The need for detail surged within her, propelling her further into the fray. "Not just that," Sarah replied, her eyes darting nervously as if the walls might betray them. "There's talk of intimidation, people silenced. I think we're not just dealing with regular corruption anymore. I've seen people come and go from an unmarked van at odd hours. I'm scared, Lily. If they find out I spoke to you..." Lily felt a prick of fear alongside her determination. She couldn't let fear dictate her actions, but ethically, how would she manage the truth? Was exposing this cover-up worth the safety of those close to her? "We can't back down now," she insisted, igniting the courage she'd discovered within herself throughout this process. "You have information that can help dismantle this operation. We need to document everything, gather evidence. I'll protect you." The urgency in her tone reignited the fire between them. Sarah's voice trembled with resolve. "Okay, but we need to be careful. If they're watching us, they may be monitoring phone calls and emails." With every whispered suggestion, an unyielding responsibility settled in Lily's chest. If she wanted to bring justice to light, she'd need to operate more covertly than ever. They couldn't afford to be careless. Every moment counted. "Let's regroup and plan," she said, focusing on forging strategies. "We can meet regularly and share intel. I'll get back to my sources and see what else I can discover, maybe gather statements from others." With each iterated step forward, Lily's confidence solidified. She sensed an inherent growth within her, an evolution from an unsure investigator to a decisive strategist. Outside, night had settled in, heavy and oppressive. She could feel the weight of expectancy layered over her choices. The encounter with Sarah had reignited Lily's burning desire for the truth, but with it came an awareness that their world had become undeniably volatile. "Lily, I think we need to go deeper into this," Sarah proposed, encouragement lacing her voice. "We can't just scrape the surface. If we want to expose this, we might need to confront someone high up." Lily's breath caught again, nerves igniting her muscles. This was it. The moment of truth was approaching, where the risk of discovery could yield either justice or ruin. Would she truly be prepared to face someone with significant power and uncover their methods? Outside, a distant siren pierced through the darkness, a chilling reminder that the shadows she sought to unveil were all around her. "Are we actually ready for this?" she asked quietly, addressing not just Sarah but her own wavering courage. "Well, we'll never know until we try, right?" Sarah replied, the tenacity shining in her eyes. With a heavy heart and steely determination, Lily nodded. They had crossed a threshold from which there would be no retreat. This unfolding reality was no longer merely a story to pursue. It was a battlefield in which they were all players. But as they stepped toward that precarious edge, one question reverberated in her mind. Who would be standing with them when they faced the storm ahead? Lily's mind raced as she contemplated the gravity of what lay ahead. The battle against corruption was no longer an abstract concept. It was a looming presence demanding her action. She felt the swell of responsibility, not just for the story, but for the lives impacted by their findings. Closing her eyes for a brief moment, she could almost hear the ticking clock of consequence, pressuring her to be decisive. "We need to prepare carefully," she instructed Sarah with renewed focus. "If we're going to confront someone higher up, we need enough evidence to back us up. I can reach out to an old colleague. He has connections at the precinct. Maybe he has insight into those vans you mentioned." Sarah nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in her expression. Lily could feel their dynamic shifting, a partnership forming with shared stakes. For the first time, she fully embraced this evolution. This wasn't simply about unearthing a story. It was a matter of justice, the very essence that had drawn her into journalism. How had she been so passive before? She'd often buried herself in research, in words and data, instead of demanding the tangible truth. Now, compelled by urgency, she understood she had the capacity to orchestrate real change, to confront power, rather than shy away from it. As they strategized, Lily started mapping out a coherent approach, her fingers scribbling potential leads in a notepad. Each name, each connection, each piece of evidence became crucial building blocks for a grander narrative that transcended the act of reporting. It was the crusade for truth. "Let's focus on gathering first-hand accounts," she said, her tone now steady, zipping up layers of determination. "We can compile statements from those who've been intimidated. I'll draft some questions we can pose to them discreetly." In the quiet kitchen, the hum of energy pulsed between them. The atmosphere transformed from one of caution to resolve, each suggestion bolstering their courage. As they analyzed potential risks and benefits, something clicked in Lily's mind. A surge of latent confidence she had only glimpsed previously now fully manifested. Authenticity, she realized, formed the core of journalism. Beyond the headlines, it was about amplifying unheard voices, risking everything to bring justice to light. How had it taken a harrowing encounter to awaken such fervor? Maybe I need to confront my editor too, she realized aloud, the weight of that decision weighing heavily on her shoulders. With the evidence we compile, he might be willing to allocate resources to assist us. If we're moving toward a dangerous spotlight, we need backup. The prospect excited and terrified her in equal measure. Right, Sarah replied, sensing the shift in conviction. But once we go public, there's no turning back. We'll be in the crosshairs. Lily took a moment, pondering not just the risk, but the responsibility that came with standing against injustice. The choice was one of confronting her own fears and stepping fully into the role she was meant to inhabit. She would either rise to the occasion or be swallowed by the very forces she sought to expose. I'm ready, she said with determination that rang clear in her voice. If we want to challenge this, we have to be all in. We can't let fear dictate our actions. With a newfound resolve solidifying her intent, Lily glanced around the kitchen. The modest space transformed into their strategic headquarters. They would start here, build their nexus of truth, and then expand outward. As they talked late into the night, unearthing plans and strategies, her phone buzzed, snapping her out of the moment. It was a message from an anonymous source she had contacted long ago. I have intel on the operation. Meet me by the docks at midnight. The impending rendezvous sent a tremor through her body. Would this reveal tilt the scales in their favor, or plunge them deeper into danger? Tonight might just change everything, Lily whispered, a mix of trepidation and excitement swelling inside her. Could this be the moment they needed to confront a looming threat, or would it spiral into a disaster they couldn't control? The answers awaited, shrouded in the shadows of the night. As Lily approached the docks, a fog enveloped the night, thickening the air with tension. Each step drummed in her ears, amplifying her pulse as she prepared for the unknown. The chilly breeze felt edgy against her skin, as if heralding the confrontation that awaited her. She gripped her phone tightly, the message still flashing on the screen, its implications tugging at her focus. What if this meeting led to nothing? What if it was a trap? All questions she couldn't afford to entertain now. Clear intent replaced doubt as she navigated through the dimly lit surroundings. She had sought this information, driven by an unwavering sense of justice. The potential for hidden truths was intoxicating. She could not, and would not, shy away now. Each docked ship loomed like sentinels in the haze, shrouding their secrets. As she neared the designated meeting point, her mind kicked into high gear. What questions should she ask? What evidence did she hope to obtain? She was shedding the remnants of her old self, her previous hesitations now buried beneath layers of urgency. The suited figure emerged from the shadows, hands tucked into pockets with an air of casual confidence. "Lily, I presume?" he said, his voice low and gravelly, but with a hint of intrigue. "Yes," she replied, meeting his gaze with newfound assertiveness. "What do you have for me?" "Not here. We need a more secure location," he asserted, glancing around as if wary of unseen watchers. A tremor of unease coursed through Lily. She was stepping further into uncharted territory, a gamble grounded in her thirst for truth. But there was a flicker of authority in his stance that drew her in. "Okay. Lead the way," she stated, determined not to appear hesitant. Maybe trusting him would reveal the clarity she needed. As they walked, he started explaining the urgency behind the operation, revealing snippets about corruption that wormed through the department, dangerous alliances that twisted the fabric of the precinct, elements of a story that could reshape the narrative she envisioned. Each revelation stretched her ambition, a call to arms echoing loud and clear in her heart. "Why are you doing this?" she challenged, keeping her voice steady. "What's your stake in this game?" He smirked, a hint of admiration glimmering in his eyes. "Because I'm done with keeping my head down. Like you, I want to see justice served. It's about time someone did." His words struck home. Could he genuinely be an ally? Or was this another thread in the tapestry of deceit? Her instincts flagged a caution she battled to suppress, but she sensed that she couldn't afford to retreat now. This was more than just professional. It tugged at her core belief in truth. They found a small abandoned warehouse, its exterior worn and unremarkable, but within lay the promise of deeply buried secrets. The structure was alive with the creaks of age, amplifying the nervous energy that hung thick in the air. They settled in an area lit only by a flickering bulb, and he handed her a packet, a collection of documents, names, timings. The dawn of a breakthrough flickered on the horizon. This, he declared, gesturing toward the papers, could expose everything. As she scanned the details, her heart raced not just with excitement, but also with the weight of responsibility that came with it. This was validation of her gut feeling, a path forward, but it also marked a turning point. They were crossing into a realm where the stakes rose exponentially, especially as a voice in the shadows started to whisper of repercussions that could come. "Are you ready for the fallout?" he questioned, a challenging tinge lacing his words. She hesitated momentarily. There was no turning back from here, but the implication was clear. To embrace this revelation meant embracing both the risk and the transformation it demanded of her. "I am. Whatever comes, I'm ready to face it all," she affirmed, her voice steady despite the tremor of uncertainty below the surface. Suddenly, the loud clang of metal echoed through the warehouse, resonating with ominous foreboding. Lily's heart dropped as instinct took over. They weren't alone, and the consequences of this meeting might unravel into chaos at any moment. "Time's running out," the man said, his demeanor shifting, a warning reflected in his eyes. "We need to act fast." Could they find a way to turn this moment of revelation into an actionable plan, or were they about to unearth a danger they couldn't handle? The answers twisted in the air, lingering just beyond reach. The clang reverberated again, sharper this time, slicing through the thick tension in the air. Lily's heart raced as the adrenaline surged with every echo. She glanced at her companion, whose eyes flared with the urgency she felt inside. "Stay close," he said, voice barely above a whisper. He led her deeper into the shadows of the warehouse. With every cautious step, her instincts sharpened. She felt the weight of the documents in her hands, their contents swirling in her mind like a storm. What now? Did they hide the evidence or use it immediately? The dilemma tested her thoughts. There was an undeniable thrill in the unknown, but it thrummed alongside an unsettling sense of dread. She had fought for truth. Could it become her undoing? As they reached the rear of the warehouse, he searched through a dusty crate, swiftly pulling out a notebook, a faded account of previous investigations tangled in cover-ups. "Here," he said, thrusting it toward her. "This ties everything together. Names, locations, transactions. But we have to be smart about this. We can't just burst onto the scene waving documents." Lily's mind raced. Though she felt a surge of empowerment from this newfound agency, the weight of responsibility loomed larger. She could expose the corruption, but the implications collided with the reality of dealing with dangerous people. The pieces of the puzzle were aligning, but the bigger picture was shrouded in shadows. "Then let's plan," she replied, barely able to suppress the tremor in her voice. "We need proof. Concrete evidence they can't deny." "Agreed," he nodded, stepping closer, lowering his voice even further. "But we must anticipate the fallout. If they find out we're onto them, the consequences will be severe." The stakes were undeniable. A mix of fear and determination coiled within her. She wasn't just an investigative journalist anymore. She was a player in a dangerous game. Somehow she had to harness the energy surging through her veins into something actionable. "Let's split the tasks. I'll dig deeper into the financial records while you gather intel on their movements. Timing is crucial." A flicker of respect crossed his face. "You're sharper than I imagined, Lily. But we need to trust each other fully. No misconceptions, no secrets." "Trust runs both ways," she replied sharply, the tension between resolve and vulnerability evident. This was her moment to assert every lesson she'd learned, not just to survive, but to flourish. Slowly, she would carve a new narrative from the chaos around her. She dove into the notebook, each scribbled note a potential door to the truth she sought. Hours melted into minutes, strategies forming under the dim glow of the bulb above. But the shadows were encroaching. The clangs outside grew frantic, an alarm set off amidst their whispers. Anxiety ricocheted off the walls as footsteps approached, muffled yet unmistakably close. This was no longer just a meeting. It felt like a siege. "Time to go," he urged, urgency lining his brows. Without a second thought, they pushed forward, driven by instinct. But the doubt lurked just beneath the surface. Had they triggered something they couldn't handle? Could she make the right decision while caught in the crossfire of ambition and fear? As they drew near the exit, a figure emerged from the shadows, cutting off their path. The silhouette was imposing, a stark reminder of the peril that shadowed them. Lily's pulse quickened. The time had come to confront the unknown, and in that moment, all she had built up to this point rushed back to her. Was she ready to face the consequences of the truths she was unearthing? "Who are you?" The figure growled, and the tension exploded in the air, a palpable force requiring only a single spark to ignite. Before she could respond, the eerie quiet of the warehouse shattered as the light swung on, bathing everything in harsh white, revealing the full scope of the danger she now faced. Lily squinted against the brightness, panic rising as the stark light illuminated the figure before her. The man from the shadows was not just anyone. He was the very embodiment of authority and intimidation, a key player in the intricate web of corruption she'd set out to expose. "Who are you?" he demanded again, taking a step closer, each word weighted like lead. The air thickened with tension, and Lily felt the full force of her journey crashing down around her. This moment was pivotal. It could either solidify her newfound purpose or obliterate it in an instant. She started, but the words faltered on her tongue. The fierce determination she felt moments ago wavered. Doubts flooded her mind, pushing against the walls she had been so resolutely building. But something inside her snapped into focus. The fear she felt was a challenge to be met head-on. "I'm here for the truth," Lily finally blurted out, surprising herself. The conviction in her voice was steadier than she anticipated. "You can't hide from the consequences anymore." The man raised an eyebrow but didn't move. Instead, an intrigued smile tugged at his lips. "Truth? You think a child can understand the depths of power at play here?" Lily felt her heart pound louder. "I may be a child, but I know enough to challenge you," she shot back, grounding herself in the confidence she had cultivated throughout her investigation. Every late night, each painstaking detail unraveled before her, flooded into her consciousness, driving home the fact that fear no longer had a claim over her actions. "Impressive," he said, eyes narrowing. "But naive. Do you really think you can expose what's meant to remain buried?" "Maybe naive, but not weak," she countered, her voice firm. The shadows no longer felt threatening. They were merely a backdrop for the fire igniting within her. The man studied her for a moment, an unexpected flicker of respect passing across his face before he shrugged. "What do you plan to do with that fire? You can't fight a system built by shadows with mere words." A rush of adrenaline coursed through her. Every word of his served to bolster her resolve. "I can fight with the truth. I've uncovered enough to bring this system down, with or without your help." "Bold words for someone so young," he remarked. But now there was an edge of something else, perhaps curiosity or even wariness, as if he genuinely did not expect such a response. "Every moment I've spent researching, gathering evidence, risking everything. It's not just for me. It's for the people who've suffered under this system," she asserted. The passion in her voice rang clear. "You could help me, or you could try to stop me, but you can't intimidate me anymore." Deep within her, she felt an ember ignite, transforming into a flame. Today was not about uncertainty or doubt. It was the culmination of every experience she had faced. Through her struggles, she had risen, and she refused to shrink back. The man regarded her with a newfound intensity, and for the first time, she sensed the shift in the air. Was this audacity enough to garner respect, or would it incite further conflict? Either way, she steeled herself, ready for the next steps. "Very well, then," he replied, less sure. "Let's see how far you're willing to go, Liliana. Your resolve might be tested more than you think." Lily straightened, emanating confidence and clarity. "I won't back down, not this time. I'll expose the truth no matter the cost." As they prepared to navigate the fraught terrain ahead, Lily knew they were entering a battleground where truth collided with danger. Every moment mattered. She had transformed from an innocent seeker of truth into a determined warrior for justice. The stakes were monumental, but the power resting in her hands was palpable. The tide had turned. No longer was she chasing shadows, she was confronting them. And with every heartbeat, the world outside the warehouse faded to a distant hum, focusing her on the promise she could still forge. Over the next hours, they developed a strategy together, outlining steps to gather undeniable evidence. She felt empowered, each piece of the investigation stitching together a fabric of strength woven with her grandfather's legacy. He had fought for justice, and so would she. By the time they stepped out of the warehouse, she was no longer just a child on a mission. She had grown into a fearless advocate, poised to dismantle the shadows that cloaked her town's truth. And as they walked away from the looming structure behind her, the boundary she had once feared was merely a reminder of the determination she now held within. Lily had accomplished a turning point in her journey, emerging from the shadows stronger, clearer, and more purposeful than ever before. This was her moment, and she meant to own it. As she looked ahead, she whispered with intention, "This is just the beginning." Every challenge she'd faced had only sharpened her resolve until it gleamed brighter than any fear. Now as the night stretched out before her filled with endless possibility, she felt an exhilaration pulsing within, for she had conquered not just the shadows outside, but the ones within herself as well. Before she continued, she knew she had to share one last message. You need to subscribe now to follow Lily's incredible journey and witness the unfolding of her story of courage and truth. Leave a like now to show your unwavering support and keep the momentum alive. Comment below with your thoughts on what's to come next in Lily's journey, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let's spread the word about uncovering truths and standing courageous.